there's a problem when most of what's happening where people are standing up for things is coming from women. I have a very big problem with that. I really agree with you. We need more men. We need more men to just simple, no, thank you. You don't have to be Mr. Tough Guy. Just no, thank you. We're good. And just step into that role. And back to the thing about the reason why I think you're attracted to that physical thing is this is something I tell the boys all the time. A weak man is not a good man. That's a Jordan Peterson quote. You're not really good if you have no choice but to be good. If you have the choice of, well, I can rip your head off or I can be nice and be civilized, that shows that there's free will involved and you're not forcing yourself to be nice. So whatever it is, whether it's working out, doing something to get your confidence and reclaiming your manhood, do it.
I've got a 15-year-old son. I'm a single mom. I am divorced, so there is a father around. I am blessed in that way. My son has a father. But navigating the last few years has been really hard. Kids go through things and those tween years are very difficult. And I really started my main mentor, Dr. Barry Bellegarde, was 78, 80, and we don't really know, this kind of Jewish mystic that trained me for the last 20 something years. He taught me a lot along my journey about integrating my own feminine and my own masculine. And kind of what happened to me when I became a mother, right? I became so completely feminine and just embodied this that I had forgotten some of my strength and my warrior ways. I was probably too much in culture of being too masculine and kind of using a little bit of a mask, thinking that's what I needed to do. Mm-hmm. And my son really brought out the feminine and deeply within me. But it led to a certain level of weakness also within me and vulnerability and exposure. And I had some weird stalkers and some weird scary moments. And I'm like, why is this happening? People are usually scared shitless of me, right? Like, I don't understand. Why do these men not know I can kill them? And my mentor, that kind of led into my healing journey, but it led into me seeing my relationship as a woman, as a mother, and a son. And I had to really realize, oh, wait, he's my sweet little baby, precious boy, but I'm raising a man.
Yeah.
And how do I do that? I'm not a man. And understanding, looking more tribally and anthropologically, and understanding and respecting the rites of passages that boys had traditionally gone through that we no longer have.
I put them in.
Right. So you understand that, right? So I was looking at that going, okay. And it helped me as a clinician with my patients to realize I'm really good with these teenage kids and boys, these lost 16 and 17-year-old drug addicts and bipolars. And I'm like, I can break through in a way that makes them like, oh, they get the soft nurturing, but with this energy that understands them. And I'm very, very good with them. So, but then I had to know the line of, I had to get I have to bring male therapists in eventually. Once they feel safe enough, I got your back. I'm not going to compete with you, and
there's got to be that directness, but like at the same time, they don't take it the right way because you're not a man. It's like the way things are. And like, there's so much. I love this.
Until I can like get them from a little the fragility, fake manhood that they're in, like this brokenness that they didn't have. And then I could pass them off to a man like you, whether it's in the physical fitness, coaching, health coaching, business, entrepreneurial, psychotherapist. However, I have a very great group of referral that I'm like, I need them to learn to embody this. I need them to walk them into manhood. Awesome. Some of these, right? So me finding men's groups. So then I came across like, oh man, I'm lost doing it for my own son. And I'm so lucky that I've been blessed with groups of what I consider strong men that make me feel safe, that are alphas. And I think there's so much right now, and I've watched it in terms of him going to school and how certain behaviors and have been lost for boys and are lost for men. You're not allowed to be tactile and physical. And there's, and how I did it too, how I thought of how I was trying to protect my son so much. And Dr. Barry had to explain to me, you need to stop hiding who you are from him. You need to stop. It's not, violence, right? I had to learn like, oh yeah, he needs to know how to fight. Like I was so trying to protect him from the way I grew up. I don't want him to know about that. I don't want him to be fighting in the street. I don't want that. I've built a better life for him. He doesn't need to know what that feels like. Right.
Yeah.
But by doing that, by creating that, I was actually making him anxious. I was actually making him scared. He didn't understand that, okay, wait a minute. I'm here to protect you now, but you will be protecting me later. So let me prepare you.
Yes.
And teaching him, I said that was that when you could see the relief. And by me actually expressing my aggression to him one day and kind of saying something, he had these panic worries, Danny, that it was from the Guinness Book of World Records. He saw an image of the Terminator movie and like Somalian warriors that had guns and militants. It was like, I don't know, it's a picture, right? And he's reading. Yeah. He liked to read the Guinness Book of World Records. We were reading all this kind of stuff. So, and he would finally told me that he was afraid. He would always go to bed and he never wore pajamas anymore and wore his shoes all the time. And I'm like, what's going on? Like, what's the deal? And he was getting in trouble and we're getting frustrated. Bennett, you know better than this. Take off your shoes. Where are you wearing pajamas? Those clothes are dirty, right? And it was very confusing, months of this. And he finally told me, I keep seeing these 3 people and I keep seeing them come into the house, that'll make me cry and they're going to hurt us. And I'm ready so I can get away. I'm ready so we can go.
Wow.
And I'm like, what? Right. So then I told, Dr. Belgard helped coach me on this and all stuff. And I kind of had to have that moment of explaining to him. I said, mommy has to explain something about the way she grew up and what her father taught her. Right. And this is just the nature of how I grew up in the streets in Detroit and what having a father in prison does to you. And I was like, let me be real clear, Ben, I'm sorry. I will protect you. No one's coming here and doing anything. And it kind of had that conversation. If they do, I'm going to kill them 47 ways through Sunday. And I will have no shame, guilt, or there will be nothing wrong with that. So if they, so I said, my dad used to train me on many ways how to kill men. Do you want me to show you? And he was like, for real? And I was like, yeah. And I didn't think of, that like this. And by giving him some skill, I said, you want to go in the garage and hit the bag? You want and he was like, yeah. And so
tapping
into started with knives. And my son is a survival hunting outsword weird nature boy that I'm like, I don't even know what you're like. I don't get it, but I'm going to foster it. Right. So that led to like me going, I started writing a health book, a men's health book. I said, I'll start writing a book for him, a guide based on brain-based health, based on what I know, how from me seeing so many 18, 19, 20, 25-year-old men coming into my office with anxiety disorders, panic disorders, fear of everything, don't have a driver's license, afraid to drive, like they're living at home. They don't know, like just so constricted and contracted, and looking at it from hormone levels and testosterone to their estrogen, to their neurotransmitters, to their brain waves, to the way they were raised and the difference from how I was raised. I'm like, wait, we were all stealing cars at like 13 years old and didn't want to drive. Like, I don't even understand. What do you mean you don't want to drive? Like, who doesn't want to have freedom? But they don't. Right. So it started making me go, how do I do that? Make sure this doesn't happen to him. And then you pick up books like Michael Gurian's Saving Our Sons. I'm reading tons and what's really happening and how boys are being lost. And then you can just look at social media and culture and the destruction and kind of attacking that men kind of go under. And I just had to look at it from a different perspective and go, wait, he's going to be one of them. What have I been thinking? What have I said? What have I projected? What are my fears around his own? Like, I've responded at times being afraid of him, of what he might become one day. You know what I mean? Yeah. So then it's been an interesting journey for my own lessons. And so what I started doing is getting advice from men who went through it, from your own childhood, things you learned, things you wish your mother would have said to you, things you wish, I can't control what his father says and does. And I can't control everything he learns in society. And this is a very unique time in culture. It was very clear to me. There were men, there were women. I knew there were some that were gay, but whatever. Now, it's like, I don't know, 87 genders and the confusions and the this and the that and
Yeah, and
which
really
pronoun
trying
and
to push the confusion too,
yeah.
like actively trying to do that. Like I get it if there's preferences and then there's biological stuff and all that, but it's like my friend's son, they just moved to Florida, and 3 days in a row, a little Asian kid is like, "Hey, are you a boy or a girl?" And he's like, "I'm a boy." And then the next day, he's like, "Hey, are you a boy or a girl?" And he's like, "I'm a boy." And then the third day, he's like, "Hey, are you transgender?" And then he literally came home to his mom. The kid's 8 years old. He's like, "Mom, this kid keeps asking me if I'm transgender," and it's like, I told him already, like I told him a few times, he's annoying. He's annoying me. And
Oh,
so this is like, people forget that kids, they're so much more simple than we are. And if they hear something over and over, they're just going to automatically assume that that's a normal thing. And it's like, I'm not saying it's not acceptable, but there's going to be a hard challenge for you in life going that route, knowing that if that's the route you want to go, and it's like, the most people are going to be, whether they're gay or not, they're going to probably be a male or a female, like that's just, and I don't know, let's get into all of
yeah.
this. Are
Yeah,
we
we'll get into it. So listen, Danny, everybody, this is Danny Vega. Why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself? And we've never met in person. We've talked a few times. You interviewed me once. I don't even think my podcast aired.
you know why you're one of two or three that year we lost the audio, and I didn't call anybody back that it happened to, and I was so embarrassed that it happened.
I just figured I sucked.
No, I promise you, like you're one of those two or three that year that, to this day, I feel bad to talk to people that the people that
That happened
went
to.
through that. Yeah. Maura and I were just like, oh my gosh. And my producer was like doing everything he could, trying to get the audio from the just from the stored whatever that is, and we couldn't get it. We couldn't
Well,
have the audio.
Danny, I forgive you. And let me tell you, your other couple people might just think it's because, remember, I reached out to you. I said, can I talk to you about something? And I was going to say, so give me feedback. How bad was I that you never aired it? That's what I just assumed. I'm like, wow, must have been really, I was starting off getting interviewed. It's a really weird thing. And you're not used to that, right? That's
Yeah.
what I thought.
Yeah.
So I know him, you guys, from social media. I was connected from a friend from Sarah Kleiner, and I love your feed. I've listened to some of your podcasts. I watch how you are. I'm a very sensitive person. I'll cry, right? So that just, we can expect it, like, because I think it's beautiful. And I always want to show my son, like, this is what I'm talking about. That's strength,
Wow.
right? It's not just, I don't think people, I didn't appreciate it either. And I understand it now why my mother chose my father with all his flaws. There was this strength, this size, this safety he brought to her, and this extreme kindness and gentleness he brought to the children. Wow. And so to me, this is the Strong Man podcast. And even though we've never met, I see how much you love your wife and children.
Thank you.
Right?
That's the best compliment I could ever get. Seriously.
And that's why I'm like, wow, that man loves them people, like, damn, and I'm probably really jealous of him. Like, I ain't got nobody doing that to me, and it's stunning. And I think that's, to me, what a strong man is. It's not necessarily, and I know you go after your body and anybody who's looking at him, your physique and your muscles and all that's part of course you like it. It makes you feel good and you look good and all of that. And it feels powerful, but the power is very obviously generated from that heart space, because it's like, it's my job. This is what I was put here to do. I cannot be weak. I must protect and defend, not because they're weaker than me, it's, you know what I mean?
It's kind of the way I see it. I see it as my role. It's my role.
It's so beautiful, Danny, and it's so obvious. And then, of course, you take a stand on, I see the political things, and we've been going through stuff, and we can talk about Cuba, we could talk about COVID, we could talk about whatever. And I'm not a Christian, right? But I always deeply respect I have Muslim friends, Jewish friends, Christian friends, doesn't matter, right? My grandfather was Muslim. My mother was a born again Christian. My family's like, you gotta be whatever the hell you want to be. That's how we do, and it's, which is cool. Yeah. But very spiritual. And I respect, as long as no one's closed-minded, dogmatic. And if they have a guiding principle that helps keep them in integrity and make them a good person, I'm down for it. Whatever resonate, whatever permission slip you need. And so I just see the strength in all of those things. One of my dearest friends is an Episcopalian priest. I used to go to church just to watch him because it was, and I cried every time watching Troy. He's somebody I want to interview for this podcast as well, because I see him as a strong man. He was the first gay Episcopalian priest in the entire Southeast. And so he was rejected like 3 times before he got accepted, because he's like, I'm not going to, but this is what I was born to do. And watching him do mass made me cry, because I'm like, that's what you were born to do.
And the purpose.
There's no doubt about it. I don't need to be Episcopalian. I can see it. I can feel it. And I'm blessed to be in his presence, Exactly. So all of that I see in you. And
thank you.
That's why I said, hey, and I want to, let me read a quote. And then you can, from that, respond and tell the people about, actually tell them who you are first. And then I'm going to read it.
Yeah. So, I mean, I grew up in South Florida. I grew up in Miami. Definitely was not coddled as a kid. I mean, typical boy. I don't know if it's typical nowadays anymore, but I mean, typical boy, like just lots of fights. I had a period there because my dad has a temper, and my dad was a cocaine addict. And, in middle school, I was very violent, lots of fights. I got kicked out of my middle school in 7th grade for doing something really dumb. It was like the final straw, very violent thing that I did. And, went through anger management and all that. Football really helped. I played football. Then in high school, I did really well, played college football at Columbia. Didn't ever expect to go to an Ivy League school, but I was getting recruited by all these big schools. And here's my dad and my mom. I'm the first generation born here. Dad didn't even finish 10th grade. Mom didn't even go to college because she had to work. And here I am getting recruited by big schools. But then all of a sudden, this Columbia school calls me because my quarterback sent them game film. And it just turns out the guy who is in charge of recruiting the whole state of Florida was the running backs coach. And I was a running back. So it just and when I saw Columbia, I saw New York City. I went there. Amazing academic situation, amazing cultural situation, not the best athletic experience, but then I went on to University of Florida, got my master's there, worked with football for 8 months before they gave me a promotion and took me to the basketball facility. And now I was starting to design programs for tennis and golf, men's and women's. And the timing was great. We won the national championship in 2006. The assistant head coach got the coaching job in Virginia. So I went to be his coach at VCU. I was the head strength coach at VCU basketball. Did that for a little bit and wasn't making a lot of money. So I decided I wanted to go back home. And then I chased the money. And what did I do? Went straight into pharma. Did pharma for 3 years. Did medical device for 10 years. All in women's health. So anything dealing with the female pelvis, I'm pretty darn knowledgeable. Lots of surgeries all those years. And but in 2016 I found the ketogenic diet. I was coming off an injury from powerlifting, and my buddy kept bugging me about it, and I was just like, this is the most absurd thing ever. But I was at the end of a cut. I was super ripped and super miserable because I was eating low fat. And I just decided, you know what, I hit my goal. I might as well improve my quality of life. My carbs are already low. So I just added the fat. And it was like instantly I got, I just felt younger. I felt, because I played on AstroTurf, terrible. My body was beat up. And, I'm the type of guy who, when I get obsessed about something, everybody in the world needs to know about it. It's just how I am. Like if I have a good steak, I'm going to tell you about it. And so 2 months after starting keto, I reached out to Brian Williamson, who was doing the Keto Evangelist podcast. I told him, hey man, this is me. This is my background. If you ever do anything with athletes, let me know. I thought maybe an interview or something. I'd love to get involved somehow. He interviews me, we hit it off. And after the interview, we talked for like an hour, and he's like, you need to be my co-host. And then I was like, well, let me talk to my wife. Gotta talk to the wife. So that's kind of how things started. And the whole first year of keto, I was still working as a medical device rep. And this was just an awesome hobby for me. And it reignited everything, because this is what I've always wanted to do and be in this field, get people healthier, stronger, all that. And then in 2017, I went through some crappy work stuff, like, big business, big corporation, typical crap. And it was an eye opener. And when I had finished it, I was like, I can't do this anymore. And I was making like a $250,000. I was making a lot of money. And I saved my money for a year, quit my job in 2018, started Fat Fueled Family, and here we are today, several years later, speaking, all the stuff that I do now, and I still love what I do. I wish it was a little bit more lucrative, because it really does. When you work for the beast, like, you really do get compensated well.
Yeah.
I was completely ignorant of my role as far as being just another cog in this disgusting, huge machine. There were things that I knew, like in the hospital, all the waste. But now looking back, I'm even like, man, even on the medical side of this, I'm like, I used to really believe this, and this. And I look into it, and I know what I'm hearing from women. I know what I'm hearing from my own wife, for example, like, because I used to sell the hormonal IUD. So that was one of the ones that for me was like the most amazing thing ever. It's like the best thing to ever happen. It's not systemically absorbed. It helps with their periods and all that. But then even that, like when Maura took hers out, because I had her take hers out. Sorry guys, sorry doctor friends, but I knew how to do it. So she pulled it out, and then she had withdrawal type symptoms on a product that's supposed to be acting locally in the uterus, and it's obvious that there was some sort of systemic absorption because of the withdrawal. So here we are today. That's kind of my story.
Wow, you've done a big kind of pivot on some of the holistic health stuff, right? Because a lot of
Oh
that I
yeah,
didn't know. I'm like, and it's like, oh wow, IUDs. Oh wow.
yeah. And
And but I
I was
get to
I was
say, medical
paleo
device
too and all
sales a
that.
lot. Say it again.
I was paleo too, and
Oh
there was
yeah.
so much of it, but there was this like lack of congruence in a
It's
few
okay.
places.
The brainwashing and manipulation is
Yeah.
hard and strong. I mean,
Mhm.
people will say this and they try to be like, oh, awake and awoke. Or I was like, I'm not claiming to be awake. Please don't even project it onto me. I go, I know I am brainwashed. You have to
Yeah.
know. You don't even know how much you don't know and how
You're
much
just
you are
aware.
brainwashed. Yeah, it's like, oh yeah, probably like when we talked before off camera about new things I'm learning where I'm like, wait a minute, that whole thing might be wrong. Like just that whole thing might be wrong. This whole thing might be
Yeah.
wrong, which is how we grow and expand, right? So that's where we're at, where I'm trying to get my son to be one of those kind of men like you that can go, oh, and let's shift and let's grow. Interestingly, when you were talking about, yeah, I went through some tough stuff and a little bit violent, a little bit of this. The favorite men in my life, and they're psychoanalysts, they're therapists, they're, several that are all kind of have a very similar story and talked about the physical. Oh, I used to put my fists through the walls. Like it's the energy they were having and didn't know how to handle it.
Yeah.
And so did my brothers, right? But they ended up in prison and wanted, like they didn't work out so well for them. So when I
Yeah.
can see these men that go through it and like, wait, how were you able to transmute that energy and transform it and turn into this like insanely strong, powerful, and you're all actually very physically fit and very muscular that, when I, with these guys pick me up, and I'm like, I feel so good with this guy. There is nothing about, he will never, because it's only a beta male that comes after me on social media. It's only them,
Yeah, of
understand? So
course.
a
Always.
lot
My
of that
wife
we go
too.
through,
Maura
right? We
too.
were talking about that, right? So I told him, like, I don't know what y'all are talking about because men are awesome because they, and so
Actual masculinity. Yeah,
yeah,
like
disclosure.
untainted.
I prefer to sleep with women. I actually okay, so we're like, but I hang out with almost all these alpha kind of men
Yeah.
because why wouldn't I? One, they're never degrading me, they're not belittling me, they don't mansplain me, they're not intimidated by, you know what I mean? But
Yeah. And
not like,
if you're direct like the way you are, and you don't play the whole game of like, oh no, it's fine, I'm fine.
Oh yeah, no.
Most women are not going to like that. So it tends to be like, you're going to be around more dudes. Like
Yeah.
Mauda growing up had more guy friends than
All
girlfriends.
always for me. Yeah. And I have no
Yeah.
problem. I have plenty of female friends. I've learned how to, but I just kind of felt like one of the boys. I'm not
Yeah.
by any way. I never thought I wasn't a girl, but I just played all the sports, and they even kind of referred to me. They're like, but she's not a girl. Like I remember a mom saying that to me, like, she wants the trucks for her birthday. Trust me. Cause like, like the parents are like, I'm like, yeah,
Yeah.
I don't do dolls. Like these are
Yeah.
awesome. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So I was just more into let's play football, let's play baseball and all the kinds of things. I
Love
like
it.
to be physical, and, I liked to fight. It is what it
Yeah.
is. Right. So I have a lot of that energy, whatever that is, if there's some genetic component, whether my mom had a testosterone spike when she was pregnant with me, who knows, who cares as
Yeah.
far as I'm concerned. I've been in love with men. I've had, all of those kinds of amazing things. I just, in general, I find women to
Prefer.
be prettier and they smell better than you, Danny.
I agree.
So
I tend to
I
agree with
know,
that.
I don't blame you. So that's how I got. So that to say, I still find I want to be around strong men. The,
Yeah.
the chemical spark I get, I'm like, yeah, like look, he's strong. He's like, and they make you feel safe in a way that all of it, right? And I'm not walking around being afraid of things. I'm just saying it's just
Yeah.
this ease that comes into my system with those kind of men like
Well,
you.
it's not just, I don't think it's just fear. I think it's a lot of the time women are just waiting for a man to step up and take this off of my plate. Like take this worry off of my plate. Like who's going to talk to these people about what they're doing in the school system? Who's going to talk? And when a man steps up, it's like, okay, he's got it. Now I can rest, because women a lot of the time are thinking about all these things. Like men tend to not do that. We tend a lot of the time, at least for me, there's like, the nothing box. I'm sure you've heard of that, like where it's just like nothing going on at all. And I love it and I'm happy, while Maura's thinking of literally 7 or 8 things at one time. And it's like, Maura and I have been talking about this subject for so long, because think about this, like women come off the wrong way and it has nothing to do with them. They're not saying the wrong things. They're not saying it in the wrong way. Sometimes they get angry just like anybody else, but it's almost for some reason society doesn't accept it coming from a woman. And if a guy says the exact same thing, because I've gone through this with Maura where she gets so much crap and I say the same thing and all of a sudden there's no issue. So there's a problem when most of what's happening where people are standing up for things is coming from women. I have a very big problem with that. And I really agree with you. We need more men. We need more men to just simple, no, thank you. You don't have to be Mr. Tough Guy. Just no, thank you. We're good. And just step into that role. And back to the thing about the reason why I think you're attracted to that physical thing is, this is something I tell the boys all the time. A weak man is not a good man. That's a Jordan Peterson quote. You're not really good if you have no choice but to be good. If you have the choice of, well, I can rip your head off or I can be nice and be civilized, that shows that there's free will involved and you're not forcing yourself to be nice. So whatever it is, whether it's working out, doing something to get your confidence and reclaiming your manhood, do it. I totally agree with you on that. It's just,
So
it's
let's talk about that with these kids, right? So I have this son and I'm doing the best I can. And I'm trying to teach these principles and I'm trying to kind of create a manual for him. Like, if I die, here's how it is. And there's, things in there that I'll talk about that, like, never become a vegetarian. Don't eat soy.
yeah,
Like, I got to
yeah,
sun
yeah,
your balls.
yeah,
He
yeah,
still
yeah.
thinks I'm a lunatic right now. He's like, Mom, who,
Do you show them
nobody,
carnivore
who's really
Aurelius and
sunning their
stuff?
balls? I'm like, seriously, it's a thing. You need to
Yeah,
go sun your balls. I'm like, the family jewels are there and I need to test, you want testosterone, right? So and he's kind of in that 15 where God, why am I, he's starting to lift weights and he's starting to care about that. And he wants to, I said, okay, I'm going to tell you though, you can't eat the sugar and crap is going to lower your testosterone. Alcohol will lower your testosterone. Soy, don't listen to them. Don't be doing that plant-based business. And you need to eat some meat, right? So trying to explain, and he wants to know, but then there's this balance of like, I'm also his mom,
yeah,
right? Okay, great. So now he's 15. So when he was 7, 8, 9, 10, I could say anything, right? And
yep,
we had that conversation at 9 where he was kind of really getting into parkour. He was doing some of that.
My boys love parkour too.
Parkour is amazing, right? And he got sick and he kind of had to stop. We had a thing that happened in his life, and it happened for a reason. I don't believe pain comes to you to create purpose. I don't know what my son is going to do with the pain of those 3 years of what the mold did to his brain and being overrun with OCD and neurological tics, and how we had to pull him out of school, and how, he lost a lot of years. He didn't want birthday party. He quit acting. I won't play football anymore. I was his football coach. I was his basketball coach.
That's awesome.
So it was like, I won't do it anymore until the spitting stops, until like he just became a prisoner to being infected, right? And inflamed.
Yeah.
So everything's better. And I was like, now he's got his friends. And I'm like, yeah, let's just get him in this world again. But I had to have that conversation about, let me be clear. Again, you don't have to protect me. I will protect you from anything, because there's a lot of homeless here in Atlanta. We do things in my office. I deal with mental illness. So he'd be in the practice and we'd be places, and there might be a schizophrenic coming, and I'm seeing it. I'm like, get in the car, and I'm and I did kind of explain, never question me when I do that, because I'm
too unpredictable.
And so eventually he sat with me and I taught him, and I'm like, do you think that guy is seeing the same reality as us? He goes, no. I go, right. I said, so they're not bad people, honey, but that guy could think I'm Satan and I'm like kidnapping you. And he could think he's saving your life by coming and trying to cut me. So mommy is always looking, and I'm always aware. So if you see me directing you, this is when he was young, 6, 7, I had to don't question me. I'm out here protecting us, right? And that's just part of that Detroit way I am, and whatever, right? Yeah. So, but I had to tell him for his own anxiety, because I don't want to put onto a little boy, like that old way people do, you're the man of the house. No, you're not. You're 7. You're 8,
you're just
9,
a kid,
right? Yeah. You're a kid. I got you. Nobody's going to hurt me or hurt you. I will kill them. Yeah. And I had to be clear. I said, and just like if someone comes up to you, they touch you. I never want you to be the bully.
Don't hold back.
You crush them. Yep. You are going to hurt them. They are not allowed to touch you, right? In the same way, if an adult tries something, oh man, baby, you bite off his penis if you need to, if they dare put that in your face. Same way my dad taught me. Let's go after thumbs, eyes. No, you kill them. Yep. Everybody's trachea is soft. You better. This is how we do it. So letting them know, and you would have done nothing wrong. Your job is to get out of there, right? Yep. That's what I'm going to do. So you're safe. I got you. And I kind of had to go through we have an alarm. I have weapons. We're good. I know what I'm doing. They won't hurt you. But I had to say, it's your job to be strong and why can mommy do that? I go, I know I could be healthier. I could be stronger. But the reality is, honey, the reason people are cowards and they don't act and do things, they don't have courage, is because they have no skills. They don't have confidence because they haven't done anything. Yep. So you think when somebody, gave him an example once of Cory Booker, I said, he ran into a burning house and pulled somebody out.
I didn't know that. That's cool.
He could do that is because he had the physical fitness and the physical prowess and the mental capabilities to do it. Yep. I go, you see that guy? We'll go places. I'll point. I go, you see that guy over there? You think he could pick you or I up out of this? If somebody were to walk in here and you think he could has the strength to pick me up and put me over his shoulder and run me out of here? He goes, no. I go, do you think I could pick him up and pull him out of here? He goes, no. I go, do you think anybody could? He's 350 pounds. Nobody. I go, so I try to explain. I said, actually, you have a responsibility to your community, to yourself, to your family, to take care of yourself. You need to be the way parkour is. It's about competency and capability. I said, it's,
and lots of conquering your fears, because there's lots of jumping onto a ledge and all that stuff. Yeah.
But being capable. So to explain, one day I'm bigger and stronger than you, but one day you will be bigger and stronger than me and a lot of other people. And you do have a responsibility at that point. You were given this body. You were going to be given more muscle. You're going to be given, this is how it is. Mm-hmm. I said, and that moment will come where if something were to happen, you might jump in front of me to protect. That's how it's going to be. I'm going to be 75 years old or whatever one day, Bennett, right? And you're the man. And if you see, I explained, I go, it is your job to work out, stay fit. Because if you see someone hurting a child, an animal, anybody powerless, and you're able to come in there and be stronger, you have to be able to do it. Yep. I never expect you to be the man to walk past a woman getting hurt in the street. And he was like, I said, do you understand what I'm saying? And I was like, yeah, so that's why we eat well. That's why we sleep well. That's why I have you take supplements. I want you to be healthy for you, of course, but I also don't want you to be one of those men that will sit there and not do anything while someone's getting hurt right before their eyes because
Major
they're too
problem.
weak to do anything.
Yep.
Right. And I don't know how many people have those kind of conversations.
We have them all
Children.
the time. Well, with my boys all the time. You know, I was fortunate enough to read a book. It's a Christian book. But it to this day still helps shape like some of the big bucket ideas of being a father and being a man. And it's called Wild at Heart by a guy named John Eldridge. And I read it before Desmond was born. Someone recommended it to me. I wasn't even with Maud, I don't think. I'd read it like years before.
Wow.
And it basically started off a buddy of mine, he's a pastor, but he's also huge and jacked, and he's the team chaplain for the Dolphins. And we were powerlifting buddies and we were best buds. And he's like, read this book. It's all about, the one question that all men have. And I was like, okay, I like that. I like that. What is that? So I look into it, and it's basically every man has the question, do I have what it takes to be a man? Whether he's asked it, consciously or subconsciously, all of us, we want to know if we're looking at, for example, the movie Legends of the Fall. Did you ever watch that movie?
Oh yeah.
Amazing movie.
Yeah.
I'm so ready for the boys to watch it, but I can't, not yet, because the one thing with the Native American woman that gets shot in the head, not ready for that for my boys, not at least on purpose. If I didn't know about it, maybe. But everybody wants to know, are they Tristan, which is Brad Pitt's like wild man dies fighting a bear character, or forget the name of the other brother, but he's the guy who is a lawyer. He played it safe. He stayed home. And we all want to think that we're Tristan, but deep down inside, a lot of us have that little bit of imposter syndrome where we think maybe I really am this guy. And so the crux of it is that after a certain point, maybe it's 14, 15, 16, there needs to be a passing of the torch, and there needs to be an explicitly say you're a man now. Like you're it's your time. Like you mentioned the rites of passage. You can't do the handoff without the rites of passage either, because again, your son's gonna know that you're not telling him the truth, because you're telling him he's a man, and maybe in the back of his head, not consciously, he's going to be like, well, I didn't really earn anything to become a man,
Yeah.
and I'm not a man just because I became a man. I don't think that's what it is. So like starting off with like little rites of passage and building up to harder things and more scary things. The problem is when they don't get that, it's called like the false self, and it's really like it manifests as the lady killer, the tough guy, the wimp. They're all these versions of men that are like not the ideal, and it's because we never had that passing of the torch. You got to
Right.
have.
Let me ask,
Yeah,
this is your opinion now, do you
yeah,
think the mother, the woman could still do that to the boy, and maybe there's still some symbol. I really do believe, I mean, the way it's been done culturally is it was
yeah,
and did it just the same way with women. Like just because it was, his psyche is going to imprint more with the father. This is how it is. If I had a girl,
100%.
it'd be different. I'd be more important if it was a girl. So that's a lot for me to know, like, wow, there's a moment like we're going to have always our special thing, but
Hmm.
his movement into manhood, would there still be how much of an impact coming from me? But I do love that idea actually of
Yeah.
a true acknowledgement where it's like a conscious moment he's aware of. I just actually I rewatched it. I'm sure, have you seen Captain Fantastic?
No.
Oh, Viggo Mortensen.
Oh, I love him. I freaking love him.
It's a very good movie. Watch it first. I'm at a point where I want my son to watch it. It's this guy out in the woods, basically unschooling his children in the woods
Right up
in
my alley.
Seattle, or lots of f bombs though. So don't for your kids watching it.
Okay.
But it's kind of how my son wants to live life in a way. So my sister told me about it a few years ago, and I just recently rewatched it to say, yeah, I need to. It's this beautiful story what this
I love
father is
this
going
movie.
through with these children and trying to raise them to be, and it starts with an opening scene where the 17-year-old hunts a deer and does it very primal, and he
Big deal.
puts the blood, now the boy is dead, now you're a man.
Yes.
And it's this
Yeah.
full moment. And I got chills. See, I just got goosebumps saying it, because
Yeah.
that's what we're missing. And girls don't, we kind of get it with, you get the period,
Yeah.
there's a little bit of a moment, right? So Jewish culture has the bar and bat mitzvahs, right?
Yeah.
But most of us, like confirmation, it really doesn't do that moment for
No,
Christians. But even the bar and bat mitzvah, you're 13. I mean, they're not
yeah.
really, it's not really there yet.
Because it doesn't match with our culture. I would say that historically 13 would have been just fine.
Yeah,
But then
yeah.
back then, but the problem is, like, school being the biggest culprit with this is we've extended childhood way too far.
Yeah.
And so, like, school does that. So it's like, you're going to this place every day where they're telling you that you need to raise your hand if you need to go to the bathroom. And then all of a sudden you graduate and you can die in a war, and it's like, wait, where was so I think, like, obviously, like, no matter what, he's loved and he's going to get the best thing from you. At the same time, it's going to be really helpful to have those male role models in life. And even if it's like, you're the one who finally says it to him, but let's say he went on some of these things that it's not like we're announcing that, okay, today we're going to do something that's going to be really good for you to become a man. It's just like, hey, like going on fishing trips and doing the things outdoors that he loves with males. That alone, I think, is giving
Which he
him,
does, right? He's
yeah,
done a lot of that. This boy has done some quite extraordinary things. And he's, so he's getting these that are coming from me finding the situations.
yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, so that's going to be, I mean, it's then at that point, it's just like you're giving him the exact thing, but then he's also earning it, which I think, it's going to work very, very well. The bottom line is, like, not having that. You just need it.
I like that idea, like some little small ritual, like that, where it's an acknowledgement. It's been coming up a lot. Like,
yeah.
Getting your driver's license is a definite
That's a good
moment,
one.
right?
Yeah.
He's gonna turn 16 in October, and there's going to be this different thing. And like right now he's looking little things, Danny, like, I bought him his first wallet a few years ago, right? But like he needs another, like, wallets, things that are symbols of men, right?
Yeah.
Like kind of, I bought him a fancy watch he's like, I said, no, baby, you like, and so it was like a moment. I bought him his first real fancy metal watch.
See, that's huge.
Now he wants a suit, right? So he's like, I had bought him suits before, but now he's like a man suit, right? And he's kind of resistant. I said, okay, he's like, yeah, we'll go. And he's telling me, and I'm thinking, well, I'll take him shopping. But then I'm trying this thing where I'm like, so I feel like his dad should take him to do it instead of his mother. Like, I think that would be a more appropriate.
Is his dad going to give him the right cut though? And all that stuff? Like, he's going to make sure that.
Yeah. Well, my son's he wants black on black on black. He's like, doesn't look, I'm like, that looks real good, honey. And I'm like, he's like, I think it's just awesome. I'm like, great. And he's at that point, he goes, well, I just want to wait. I don't need it now because I'm going to grow. But I had to, baby, that's a man thing. You can get a suit. You can get suits and man things every year. And I say it with the wallet, babe. So like men often get wallets every year at Christmas. Like it doesn't have to be, he still has some OCD things where he's trying to make it be the perfect choice. And if I make a mistake, and so I have to say, I can buy you 3 wallets and we can return them. Or, I go, men change wallets. They change like it's, So, but that's just our own unique parenting style. But he's a survivalist, and he kind of says, Mom, I don't want a bunch of stuff. Awesome. He goes, he told me at 11 or 12, and he goes, I know I've got like 7 or 8 survival bags in this house. So I'm just letting you know, my son, he's been composing and making up his own custom things for years, right? Awesome. Goes, I know you think it's like kind of crazy. I think he used that word too, maybe weird. It was crazy or weird. I think he might have said crazy. That I like make all these survival bags, that I have so many. He's like, but I just really, and I said, hang on. I don't think it's crazy. I actually think you're connected to some divine source that's giving us information that things that I don't know. 100%. Hence why I keep respecting what you want, but I just don't understand a lot of it. So, I bought him his first straight knife and the name engraved. My mom, I said, it's not a weapon. I said, this kid, it's different. I understand it different. It's an extension of his manhood and his ability to be capable. And he said, I just want to be the kind of man that he goes, I don't like a lot of this stuff. I was like, why? He goes, it's uncomfortable. He's like, but I just want to be the kind of man that has one bag on his back and I can go into a forest and live like that for a year. So I need to learn to hunt because I don't want to kill an animal. It sounds horrific, but I have to know how to do it because he was scared to tell me, you know, he's kind of like knowing how would I feel about this. And I'm so sensitive and I was a vegan for 12 years and whatever. I'm not anymore, obviously, but I was like, oh, I said, okay. When you said, baby, I will get you, you will learn how to hunt. I absolutely understand that, you know? And then I was like, do you want to go to the shooting range? And so it was a big deal for me to say.
That's awesome. So
he goes to the range and I invited his father and it's like, he's disgusted by the whole thing. I know he thinks I'm a lunatic. So all these men are like high-fiving me, you know, I'm like, good. Yeah. You need to know how to do that. And he was, you know, and I'm like, yeah, these are things I grew up in Detroit, Danny. I don't know how to hunt.
My son, I grew up in Miami. I grew up in Miami too. Yeah. So like I grew up fishing. That was it, in the ocean with my dad. My dad is at home on the ocean. But like, you know, I didn't grow up shooting guns, but when I learned how to shoot them, you know, that's bringing up capability to being more capable. Yeah. So Desmond started shooting at 10. You know, I was like, screw that.
It's a very different culture, right? I'm from the North. And I live in the South. And so then I started.
I'm from Miami. So it's not
it's
really
like a city.
South.
No, I know what it's like. I know. So I had to kind of learn, and a friend here who's very Southern and hunts and has, you know, everything in militias and stuff like that. And I was like, here's the problem. You have this country nature boy. And my son she goes, he likes nature so much. He wants to sleep in a sleeping bag in your backyard. Like he prefers to sleep on the ground, Danny. He goes, he was 12 weeks.
Awesome.
He was 12 weeks in the desert of Utah over last summer. Everything they had to make themselves. So it was a wilderness experience.
Wow, that's awesome.
He had to make his own backpack. He had to make his own spoon. You want to eat? Carve a spoon out of some wood. Make a backpack out of he made leather shoes. He made, he had some clothes, but he made the backpack and there was a nomadic primal. So over the 12 weeks, they're moving. You camp for a few days, you walk, you hike 100.
That is amazing.
Hike hours in the nighttime. They did most of it at night because it was too hot. So very kind of miserable-ish. There's no sleeping bags. There's no pads. There's sleep on the ground. He was filthy, eating, canned beans. It was like horrible food. He's like, oh, Mom, this is some textured tofu crap, textured TV, whatever, right? But whatever, you got there. And it was hard. He goes, I will say this was one of the hardest things I've ever done. But he loved it and rock climb, asked to stay longer. Wow. And it was tough. We only had a letter exchange on a Tuesday. There was no phones, no access. It was real interesting, but it was right when the COVID thing happened, and he had normally done camps, like a boys' wisdom camp here which is Native American stuff and fire starting and all that. And he'd done Outward Bound, which is horribly soft now, which is not even what, he was like, it was so lame. I'm like, we paid a lot of money for lame. What are you talking about? And the counselors were trying to brainwash them into, you need to be a vegetarian and have a Prius and all I was like, oh no. We gotta do something different. Right. Because they're using these college kids that are, brainwashed.
Totally in the middle of the brainwashing. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, why aren't you guys eating meat while you're hiking? I don't understand. Like, you would be hunting, so you should be eating meat. So it's very weird to me. But so anyway, he's gone through kind of that kind of stuff. Right. And we've had these moments, but then back here since COVID, what I got him into, which is interesting, your physical stuff, where I'm like, my son wasn't really physical, but he could be. I mean, he did put a fist through a wall once, like with his dad, not with me. But like the suit thing, like, I don't know. It's in terms of, you have a wife and you have 2 kids, boys in particular, and they're younger, but like, I'm still trying to navigate what's my role. And I don't want to my mother did everything. I was raised by her. My father was in prison. So we had a relationship and he loved me, but it was all letters and just cards, right? He couldn't take my brothers to do it. My mother had to teach them how to shave. My mother had to talk to them about sex. My mother had to do all the things, right? And they suffered a lot. Now, maybe they would have turned out like that anyway, right? but she kind of had that conversation where it was like they got so much more attention than me and my sister, and we were okay, and they had all these problems, and still to this day, you know, Danny. And she kind of said, but they didn't have, and she feels guilty. I couldn't give them the father they needed. It's not
Yeah.
the same. She just knew boys
Yeah.
need that. You had me. You guys got to. So, you know, telling her about the period and her getting the stuff and her explaining boys and men and sex, you know what I mean? She could do that. It was from a very different angle. She had to do it with them. And, you know, I am divorced. It's very different when you're married. I don't have influence over this, my ex-husband, over things. There are things that we disagree on very strongly. And the way his image of what he would like to do things and the way I would do them are very different. And, you know, so there's
Yeah.
that struggle I go through where I can't undermine or castrate his presence in my son's life, because I would be undermining and castrating my son because he's made in his image. And I did choose
Yeah.
this man. I was in love with him. I did marry him. And we just have our differences on how we would see moving forward in life with things, right? It's a definite challenge, right? So I'm looking for
Yeah.
men like, okay, what would you do? What would you say? What would be your advice? And I'm gonna read a quote so you know
Yeah.
that, like, right.
Yeah.
So, oh, that's my dog. My dog is screaming. There's a few, right? And I really, well, this one reminded me. And what I found is the toughest, badass kind of men are always this way. A sure sign of a man's strength is how gently he loves his wife and children.
Oh, it's good.
I've always seen that, right? You've
Yeah.
never seen a,
That's the only thing that makes me cry is my wife and my kids.
yeah,
If
it
like
should.
I laugh when people cry, it's really hard for me. But like,
Oh,
like it's hard. It's weird. It's like, I got that
okay.
nervous energy when I'm at a funeral, like it's weird.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
when it comes to them, it's like boom, instantly, man.
yeah.
Crazy.
No, I didn't used to cry really until I became a mother. I would be the same. I could anything. Look fine. I might do it later by myself, like usually in a shower when the
Hmm.
water, I have my moment and it's like out of nowhere. I could release it. Oh
Yeah.
no, I'm that person that would be. I go more into strike mode.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
until the babe, until that just unleashed a whole feminine thing, which I'm grateful for.
Hmm.
Um, a strong man cannot help a weaker unless the weaker is willing to be helped. And even then, the weak man must become strong of himself. He must, by his own efforts, develop the strength which he admires in another. None but himself can alter his condition.
I totally agree with
Right.
that.
So we're in
Yeah.
this state of where there are people who are maybe wanting and trying and they don't know what to do. And as women, we often want to come in and rescue. I don't know
Yeah.
if men don't seem to have as much of that.
Well, I still have that. I have that. What he messed with him, like right there. I'm like, I want to scare the kid to death, like whoever messed with him, and I really got to fight that because I know it's going to hurt him. Like, I have an interesting situation where my younger one is, they're both me and Maura in little different combinations. So Desmond's like me in the sense that he can just be in any crowd. He loves people. He's considerate. I don't know if I'm not as considerate as him. I've had to work on my empathy. That's something that I have to actively work on. But then at the same time, he has situations where he doesn't stand up for himself. He'll stand up for his brother and then he won't stand up for himself. And it's not even just in situations where it's like to defend himself. It's more like you should expect more for yourself. You shouldn't take that crap from that girl, not even a boy. Like she's doing all these things, she's manipulating you, and you're just so sweet. You need to just tell me how you're going to say this to her. Well, I'm going to say this. No, you're not going to say it that way. You need to say it like this. Look, I'm not interested. Thank you very much. And that's it. No explanation, no anything like that. And then the other one is like, he's like me in the sense that he doesn't care who you are. He doesn't care how old you are. He doesn't care how big you are. He will stand up to you. Like that was always my thing. My dad taught me that, but I just kind of like, I think some people are just more bound to be like, wait, what'd they say? And just go versus like run away or something like that. That was always me. It was like I had to fight myself. And now that I have so much to lose, I have a mortgage, I have a family, it's even more that way where I have to be like, okay, I can't be this way. So they both have their own things, but what you said is so accurate because I I'm gonna be there, and I've thought about this a few times because like they see me, they see I'm a strong guy, a big guy, and I can see how that would be like at times hard to feel like you're gonna live up to that. And so, I'm always thinking about that. And like with Desmond, for example, well, both of them, I always say, they'll say, "You're so strong, Papi. You're so big." And I'll say, "Listen, if you want that for yourself, I can teach you if you want it. If you don't want it, you can still be really strong and not be big. There's lots of different types of strength. But like there's always that, Papi, I'm not going to be here for you. And these problems that you're having now, I promise you, they're the best ones to practice with because they're not real problems. In real life, I know they're real to you right now, and I'm not trying to take that away from how real they are. But I promise you, this is nothing compared to the real world. The real world is going to be much worse. And you won't be able to understand why people are doing it. You'll be just like the first time he ever sparred, I was like, okay, you're going to get punched. It happens. It's
Mhm.
going to feel so insulting. It's going to feel so shocking. You're going to think to yourself, oh my gosh, he just punched me. It's going to happen.
Yeah.
You got to get used to it. It's just how it goes. You're going to get punched, and in that situation, it was like the same kid was sparring with him over and over. And really, this kid was aggressive. And I would look at the parents because I'm always like, who are these kids' parents? Like, and it's like the
Oh,
parents are not looking at him. They're there, but they're not there. So it's like there's obviously things manifesting themselves that he's bringing from home. And at the same time, Desmond is like, oh, I don't want to spar with him again. Like, and I'm just like, Papi, listen, what's the worst that's going to happen? Like you're going to get punched in the nose. If you get punched in the nose, it's the best place you could punch someone without really hurting them badly because it just hurts. But it's not like a jaw, you hit someone in the temple or the jaw where they can get knocked out and then get a concussion and hit their head. So like it's just trying to say, yeah, it's gonna suck and yeah, it's gonna hurt and yeah, it's gonna be bad, but I promise you it's not that bad. It's much more in your head, and that's why like, when these things happen, it's like really important for me to like be like, see, it's not that bad. Like
yeah.
Dean, oh my gosh, Maura comes in, let me get you all, you need a little band-aid, blah, blah. And then I'm coming in and I'm just like, look at you. You've got run over by cars. You've done this, and this, and look at you now. Look at you. You could just take anything, Papa. You're superhuman. Look at you. So like giving them that, one thing that's in that book too, Wild at Heart, is like he's always like, you're a wild man. He would tell his kids when they'd be out in the wild like that, you're such a wild man, and it's like, what does that mean? What is the implication of my dad telling me I'm such a wild man? It's like there's this guy who's to me the biggest, strongest, baddest thing ever, and he's passing on some sort of respect to me just for doing this. That's part of that developmental confidence building that comes to that point where it's like you're not picking fights, but if someone messes with you, you're not going to be like, do I really, it's not going to. And I always tell them too, like when you hesitate, that's when you get hurt. It's always like I go, in high school, I went against this guy. He was the hardest hitter on the team. First time I went against him, I kind of didn't go in all the way and I separated my shoulder,
Mm.
and then like just turns out that same guy gave me a concussion that day, but on another hit, but which is a whole other situation because I always thought my boys were going to play football. I was like, oh, I'm going to have, football playing boys. And now I'm like, now they both asked to play. So now I'm gonna let them play. But I didn't actively push it anymore just because number one, everything with the TBIs and the
Yeah.
CTs and all that. But number two, like nowadays, knowing what I know now, for example, like if they do choose to go to college, which just the other day Desmond asked me, like, should I go to college? And I was like, I'll be honestly, it all depends on what you want to do. Like, I mean, honestly, at this point, like if you would ask me in high school, I would have been like, yeah, of course, go to college, get your master's,
Yeah.
you know? But now I'm like, I told him, you better have a business plan written out for me and you better sell it to me. Cause I'm at the point now where I'm like, guilty until proven innocent. Like colleges are cesspools. And
Yeah.
if we're talking about manhood and masculinity, they go there to die a slow, terrible
Okay, let's
death.
talk about it. I love it
Yeah.
because I'm on
Yeah.
that same page with
Yeah.
my son. He's talking about college, and I'm like, honey, here's the thing. You don't. I told you before, you don't really have to go. I mean, that's and the
No.
same kind of thing. He's up about. We gave him like $3,000 for the stock market a few years ago. He's very into stock markets, and he's at like I don't know 11 or 12,000 right now. He goes, Mom, you know how much I've made? And he said, you know what? And so he's very into, if I just hold that, do you know, if I just leave it and I don't even day trade anymore, I'm going to have like millions by the time I'm like 70. You understand?
Yeah. I
I'm
love
like, yeah.
that.
I'm like, honey, you need to get into crypto. No, crypto's too unstable. So that's my kid, right? Give you an
That's
idea
awesome.
that where he's been. So we've kind of I've been teaching him that, been saying it for years. And he's a little hesitant where I'm like, babe, here's the thing. He's, I'll probably do a little real estate. I'll probably do a little this, probably do, like you, I'm not being a doctor though, Mom. I don't want to do that. I'm like, that's cool, honey. Nobody needs to do this. Trust me.
Yeah.
And I said, always try to say like, here's the thing. You don't actually have to even go to school for that. I'm like, if you come up with a proposal right now, your dad and I could get you a house and you could renovate. Like we could help teach you how to do this, but you would have to be the lead. I said,
Yeah.
this is what my ex-husband is a real estate developer. I said, this is what you like, he really knows how to do. And I've flipped some houses and I could help you in this, like you would learn more by doing this, honey. So you could get some properties now, flip them, take the money, or we could hold it, put it in a trust, and you could rent it. And, you hire, and he's kind of like you don't have to keep waiting till you're 18. I keep trying to explain like,
Yeah.
what? And so
Yes.
he
Oh my
still has
gosh. What do you want to be when you grow up? I hate that word.
yeah, he's kind of still grabbing, like, oh, okay. But now, like I say, last few years, I think he's just excited to have some fun right now. But I'm the same way so there's a couple things you said that, like, all right, like the industrialized kind of educational system, not necessary, which is how it used to be.
Harmful, straight up at this
Yeah,
point.
well, it's changed. It really has
Yeah.
changed. Like back in the day, I have friends that are, in their 70s and stuff. And my one friend, Jim Curley, former Marine sergeant, drill sergeant, his wife and kids, and he became, a PhD and college professor and all kinds of other. And he sold stuff. He's like, hey, I became a salesman. Like it is what it is. I had a wife and kids. My family, take care of your. So he was very stunned by men today. He's like, what's up with all these guys having their wives support them so they can live their childhood fantasies? He's like, I don't get it. He was really struggling. We used to teach a course together, and he's like, I'm going to say something bad because I just don't get it.
Yeah.
My day, you're 18, you get a job, you join the military, or maybe you went to college if you're lucky. But in general, bye. We were grown.
Yeah.
We were grown men getting wives, working for a factory, finding a way to go to college ourselves. And if that meant the military, because that's how I did it, He's like, so this whole, and he said the same thing. He said, what's up with this like 25-year-olds still like children living at home and their parents are driving them around? I'm like, I don't understand it, Jim, personally. And I'm 30 years younger than you, and I'm still confused by it because I left at 17. I'm like, bye, I'll take myself to college.
I was
like,
gone at 18.
Yeah. I'm like, love ya. And I'll come home and for dinners and all the things, but like the whole point is to be grown, right? Yeah. So, but it's a very different culture today, right? So he said, like, I'm the same way with like, questioning the whole, you don't need to go to college, come up with creation. And if you really want to, my son would probably be an extraordinary attorney. He's and that at this point is legal war, So I'm okay with.
We need some more good lawyers for
warriors,
sure.
Right? I kind of like I had to go with like, oh, if that's the case, I want him to be like the girl on Yellowstone. Have you ever watched that? Oh.
Is that the name of it? The Girl in Yellowstone?
So Yellowstone is a TV show with Kevin Costner. You would love it. It's all these strong men out in like Montana or whatever.
I love that.
Rancher.
I'm always looking for something because we don't really watch too much TV.
Oh my God. They're gangsters. I had no idea. Thugs, cowboy thug. I'm like, this is like, I'm looking at it going, this is some white ghetto shit. I'm like, I had no idea. And my friend's like, you don't know about cowboys? I'm like, I didn't know it was like this. They are nasty. And I love them. Like they're kind of like thug gangsters, mobsters that you're like, yeah, but he cool. I like him. Well, his daughter is like this. I mean, badass of like will eviscerate you with her intelligence and the words and that kind of whole thing. So I kind of like my son is that natural Libra debater, oppositional fight. He'll crush you.
I'm
Like,
the same too. I love debating too.
yeah,
I don't.
he loves it. So now he's starting to hear people say, yeah, you'd be a good attorney. I mean, one of his teachers, the kind of principles, like, let me be real clear. I would never want to face this man in a court of law because he will devastate you. If that's what you're
Devastate
like,
you. I love it.
he's like, I don't, most of us can't win an argument with him. And you're like, well, he's actually right. Or like, well, you're still wrong, but damn, that was a brilliant
That rhetoric was
argument.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like you can really convince somebody of something, but the answer's still no. Right.
Yeah.
So that's kind of him. I'm like, well, if that's the case. So people are saying that to him now. So I'm like, well, maybe that's what he's going to do. And he's probably naturally gifted at it. But you also talked about physical, the importance that to me, that's one of those like key elements that I think boys are missing are contact sports, physicality. I think wrestling, boxing, fighting, sparring.
Yeah. See, all the ones that you just mentioned are the best thing that you could do because
I agree. So tell me more as a man, because I got my son into box. I finally was like, I need to get him to organized boxing. And of course, because of the stupid pandemic, they're making children wear masks in a boxing gym.
No.
And they're still doing it. So I said, you're not, I was like, there's no way. And he knows there's no way. And I said, and he's home now, he's boxing. And he was so good at it. It was really helping his focus. It was helping everything. And I said, he's like, I'm not doing it until the thing stops. So now I've got to try to find him a new gym. I said, I find you a new one that's somewhere out in outer Georgia that won't be stupid.
Yeah.
That's the case. But please explain this, because I was like a young, kind of violent kid that fought a lot. And, I got cracked in the face and knocked out a lot. We were doing chains and locks and bricks in Detroit.
I got 15 staples right here in my head remember the club that you put on the steering wheel of a car?
Yes.
I got hit here. I got hit here. I looked like Quasimodo for a week. 15 staples in this one. First of all, it's a helix sport. So like if he decides to go to like colleges are not looking at your GPA and your community service and your SAT. Like that's a given. It's a given that they should be good. You should be good at school. What they're looking at is two things. This is from John Taylor Gatto, my hero. He wrote Dumbing Us Down. He wrote Weapons of Mass Instruction, New York City and State Teacher of the Year. Several times, and the guy he was brilliant. God rest in peace. He just died like 2 years ago. But he says that, he spoke to Princeton, he spoke to Harvard. All these people were like, what is it that you're looking for? I want to know what you're looking for so I could tell my kids. And they're looking for two things. Either, are you going to make us some money by becoming super successful and giving us some money for our coffers, or are you going to bring us some notoriety? So like if he's walking around and he's wearing a Princeton shirt, it makes Princeton looks good. Oh, look, so-and-so, he went to Princeton. Those are the two things. So it turns out, number one, they're looking at things like helix sports, and I'll get back to the man side of it, because this is true for women and men. But number two, they go straight to your hobbies, because they want to know how you're spending your time when you're not forced to do something. They want to know what you're doing on your own time. So that's when they're like really get the real you. But as far as the fighting sport, why is it good? Especially jujitsu, even, because jujitsu is one where you are getting physical, but you are put in very difficult situations much more often. Because with boxing, you're gonna spar, but you're also, sometimes you won't get a good sparring partner and they'll just be weak and not giving you what you need. With jiu-jitsu, you're gonna go, when you go, there's gonna be a point where you're gonna get submitted over and over and over. And it doesn't matter if you're a white belt or a blue belt or a purple belt or a black belt, you're gonna just get submitted a lot. So you're learning how to become
that's a grappling sport. That's a grappling martial art.
Yeah. Now, striking is always good, but like even if you didn't do any striking and you learned how to be a good grappler, you don't, because once you get on the floor or once you get close to someone, most of them really don't know what to do, and it's comical what the natural tendency for someone to do who's not trained always sets them up to be just destroyed. It's always like, oh my gosh, okay, this guy doesn't have any training. So there's that, because now it works in so many different ways. Number one, you're confident. You'll never get bullied because you're confident, but you'll also never bully because you're humble. So I like those two things because it really keeps you that way. The other thing is just, I said this thing like 10 years ago, and I maintain it to this day, is, me, I'm like anarchist, libertarian, like I don't want any, but if there was one law that I thought we need right now is like, when you go get your license, if you haven't been punched in the face yet, you need to go to that line and you just need to get punched in the face. Did you get punched in the face? You got your license.
I kind of agree. No, I have to tell you, it's so, and I don't know, I know you homeschool the kids right now, so you don't have to,
But they do. They're never home. Like they're out all day. They're with Mauda. They're at Urban Cottage Monday through Thursday, 4 hours a day on those days.
We got a small community of kids and other. Right? Yeah. I tried some of that. It didn't work out so great for me. It was a little bit more isolated, but he was dealing with some stuff, and we did what we did, and is what it is. But and he's been to always these private schools. We've never been to public school, but he's done Waldorf, which was was my favorite. And then Montessori.
That was good. Waldorf.
But it's so there's a lot of the nature, and it just, not forcing reading and memorization. And he was an amazing knitter and made beeswax candles and all that kind of stuff. Right. And they had chickens so he's been able to do all that. And then Montessori was a different,
where they are is very Montessori.
Yeah. It was a perfect model for him. And it's just, now he's older and there's more structure in his grades. And, he's falling more into, but he wanted that. He's kind of said, I went to these weird schools. He kind of was blaming, like, I want to be normal. I want it like super normal. Those were not, I'm like, they were normal. He says they weren't normal schools. I'm like, they were normal. I'm like, I would have said,
Papi, you don't want to be normal. I always tell my boys
that's
that.
I say the same thing. But the teenage years, your kids are
you got more to fit in those years.
That's what they're looking for. And it's a normal change, right? Where my influence should go down. Yeah. Right. And I told him that it's a tough time for us, Bennett, because you still are super close to me. But what's going to happen is your peer group is supposed to be really important. I get it. But some of them are stupid and making bad choices.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I said, you got to be smart enough to discern. So I love if we watch something. My son is a Pisces. So let me say, I don't own a TV. But 12 was my age where I was like, I'm going to allow him to watch movies and stuff like that, and have media. But there was so much, and Waldorf is the same way. So I felt like I'm in the right community and I'm cool. And there's a lot of kids don't have TVs, aren't watching things, not video games, and everyone's very mindful of screen time. So it was a nice place to be. But around 9-10, some things were creeping in where he went to like a birthday party, and the birthday party was a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle theme, right? They were going to watch a movie, and he was like stressed out, and he called and said, "Oh no, baby. It's great. You have fun, but he really didn't like it that much. It was all partying, distracting, and it was all whatever. So he's a Pisces, and I actually had his astrological chart done a few years ago to kind of learn more about him. I finally was like, is there an access point to then when I was helping him when we both got sick with the mold, I was like, as I'm recovering, let me learn something more about him. And I love all that stuff. Yeah. And when the woman went through, he's a Pisces moon. So the Libra Pisces moon, and she was talking about things. She's like, so does he like to read a lot? Does he read or watch movies? I said, well, we don't watch TV or movies, but he's a voracious reader. I mean, this boy this is his favorite activity. Like, outside of hiking and biking, I mean, it's reading. I mean, he's into it. She's like, oh, he needs it. And she explained to me what Pisces are like. And I was dating a Pisces at the time. So it made total sense. Like they're very much need story. And so reading stories, movies and stuff. And so she explained, she says, no, actually, so movies for him would help calm him and soothe him and give him an experience with you. And I was like, really? And so the way she explained it and how that would help him and help calm him in a whole energetic way, I opened up to like, we can watch a movie on a Friday. He's like, really? I'm like, yeah. So what do you want to watch? He was very much into like simple stuff, but I watched the change in him. It wasn't just reading in his own experience, because at that point I really wasn't reading to him anymore. He could read and it was different, and we didn't have that. So I started letting him do some of that. And it really did help, Danny, just in terms of now he has things in commons with kid and he's looking to be normal, looking kind of this fitting in. But all I have to say at the schools, that this is a circular back, they weren't allowed to do things like play touch football because that was eventually too much contact. It was too violent. When he told me that, I said, what? Like in fifth or sixth grade. I said, yeah, Mom. I said, what? And one day I went to pick him up and he was on the jungle gym thing. And so, you're talking to the teachers, talking to people, and I hear Bennett, and they came to me, can you help us with Bennett? I go, help with what? And I looked, they go, well, we're trying to get him down. I go, down from what?
Get down?
Well, but I don't know why. They're like, well, I'm like, what do you mean? Is he not allowed to be on? I don't understand. And they're like, well, no, he's on the top of it. And it's really just meant to be the monkey bars. I went, what? Yeah, look at your eyes, right? I literally said
We've dealt with this. We've dealt with it at parks because
he's. Are you kidding? I just
especially he was what, 11 or 12?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it might be modeling dangerous things to the smaller children. I'm more of the parent of, you might break your arm and then you learn to heal. Like he broke his arm on skateboard. I'm like, well, it happens. What did he learn? Look, you heal.
Yeah.
You don't
all we did in those situations, we went through this so much because it was always like the other kids doing it after watching my boys doing it. And then it was like, well, he's doing it. And then I'm like, all we did was we would always say, if you fall from there, it's going to hurt. Just letting you know. Yeah. Well, and then they'd fall and then they'd trust us, Yeah.
Well, this kindergarten teacher at Waldorf, and she was amazing. She would say this thing, which I loved. And I'm like, it gets lost as they get older, apparently, because in the PC world of fragility we live in now with these boys. And this is why I'm afraid for them, because again, I shouldn't be able, I'm 48. I should not be able to ever do more push-ups than a 19-year-old young man.
Yeah. But all of these things act as like exposure therapy to like our fears, our, like doing these things, like go with that thing. Like we don't risk life or limb. Yeah, of course we don't. We're not going to, you're not going to play with a circular saw, but at the same time, like, go ahead, go for it. And guess what happens for us? It's awesome because guess what? Now my boys trust me when I tell them that my dad, like Desmond, I said this the other day. I was so happy because I was like, he always asks me for advice. Always. Like, he's like, Papi, what do you think I should do? Should I do this, or this? And it's like in every situation. It's like in social situations, like he wanted to drop a note to the next door neighbor. She's quarantined because someone was exposed to someone at her school. And now she's staying at home. And because of it, he can't see her. So for him, he's like, I just want to brighten her day. So he wrote her a note, and he wanted to like get it to her. And they have the Ring doorbell, so they're gonna see him on the on the camera if he just ding dong ditches her. So he's like, well, Joe's outside. I'm like, oh, her dad's outside. Joe's outside. Go give it to her dad. And Maura's like, yeah, he's always gonna ask you for that. I still ask my dad for advice. And so there's that side of it, but. I guess, I don't know. Let's get back to what we were saying. I kind of went on a tangent.
Well, what I liked about what this teacher said, she said, if you're going to play rough, you got to be tough. And I think that's where it is. It's kind of like it's people, they would come to me, oh my God, so-and-so did. I'm like, well, and I'm like, you're playing football or I don't understand. You're going to fall. You know what I mean? Or like, you're going to get hit. You're going to get hit. And I'm that kind of mother where I'm like, not like, I think you guys they should be falling and the kids should be stumbling. And even though I still think that way and I kind of raised my son that way, he still ended up kind of afraid at times. But it could just
it's also the environment too. Like you're one input and there's all these other inputs.
No, it's so horrible. So let's talk about that. I'm one input.
Yeah.
And so like I'm trying to write a guide and I'm asking strong men. As this woman who's writing a manual for my son, what would you say is really important? The legacy I should try to be leaving him. Again, it could be because your boys might read this book. Make sure this. Always do this, never do that. What are some of the pieces of advice that you have now as a man that you're like, I need to make sure for myself I'm doing this. I need to make sure for my children that, that I'm raising, boys into men. And because like, for example, part of this is also I'm doing it for my son, but I'm thinking women and patients will read this, because I had a patient recently and she's an incredibly devoted single mother helping her son, a 13-year-old boy. And she's trying to, he's super crazy intelligent, plays classical piano, but
Oh,
he's
wow.
locked in his house, never doing anything
Oh,
physical with his mom. And she was talking about, I said, I'm like, exercise, because now nobody here goes to school. I don't know, in Atlanta, everything's Zoom school. I mean, the majority is still Zoom school. So he hasn't been in
wow.
school for a year, he hasn't been with kids, he hasn't been able to play. So he's at a computer like an extraordinary amount of times. And I said, well, what about exercise? Is he getting together with kids? Is he playing anything? Is there any sports? And everything's shut down here. It's been really
Yeah.
bad. And she said, well, I was thinking about getting him into yoga. I went,
I mean, it's
no. I
good.
said,
It's
you will,
good
it
on
is.
top of the other stuff, you
Right. But
know?
he doesn't need that. He needs to become tougher, actually. I was like, no, you should look into boxing. She was like, oh, I said, and I had, how many
Okay.
women I have to explain? That young boy needs to learn how to be a man. He needs to learn to fight in a structured environment with a bunch of men.
Yeah.
Like, it's really interesting how often I find myself saying this.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, he doesn't need more calming. He needs activation. He wants muscle. He gets on Zoom with me. What is he wants to build a bunch of, how do I make muscle? All right, honey, I
Yeah.
need to eat some meat. I
Yeah.
need you to not do celery juice anymore, because they think you're doing something healthy. She's like, I thought I was doing something healthy. I'm like, no, mama, that almond milk, a spinach, oxalate, juicing bomb is not going to help that boy get a
Cut
BDE.
that boy open and see if some
Exactly.
broccoli pops out.
I'm like, he needs meat and eggs. And he's like, oh, so what would hearing that, like, what are some nuggets and advice you're going to give me, your wife, like your kids? Like, what would you be like if I had to throw some thoughts on paper, and this is going to outlive me, to help this next generation of lost boys find their way through the chaos of what we're seeing, and how truly, I think, from an endocrine, the environment and the educational system, everything's being stacked up against them to
So
basically turn
much.
them into
My gosh.
eunuchs. That's
Yeah.
how I
Yeah.
see it.
Seriously, it's true. I'll say one that just popped into my head is like, look, I do long form podcasts. I can talk up a storm. I love to talk. I talk a lot. But when it comes to a situation that's like a serious situation where I need to set some boundaries, it doesn't have to be with a man. It's with a man or a woman. One thing that I think is super important is to just be short and direct, because if the more words you say, the more of an opportunity you're going to have to display some sort of uncertainty. And if I'm showing off uncertainty, that person's going to be uncertain too. So it needs to be
Okay,
very
short and
clear.
direct communication when you're verbal.
Yeah, when you're verbal, like, and no threats. There's a difference between give you an example, and this is a great story because now they're like great friends, and I love the kid. But this little kid on the block, he's like a year older than Des. He's a giant too, and Desmond's a giant. So it's like this kid, his dad is like 6'4", and like Des is big, like he's gonna be taller than me. I'm barely 6 foot, like 5'11" and 3/4. This kid's gonna be bigger. So he started messing around with Desmond, like saying things. It started with like the homeschool stuff, and it was at the beginning when they just met each other, and he started saying certain things, and then Desmond comes into the house crying, and I said, "What's up, buddy?" As he tells me the situation, I was like, "Okay, you need to tell him to stop, or there are going to be consequences." Now I want to hear you tell me, because I know my son, and I know that he's going to say too much. So he's like, "Okay, I'm going to tell him to stop, because if you don't stop, no, stop. Just tell him this. Stop, or there will be consequences." And he's like, "Okay." And he said that. He went outside. He told the kid was messing with him again. He told him, "Stop, or there'll be consequences." Desmond put him in a rear naked choke, had him flailing around to where the kid's sister, came to his side to help him. And Desmond, being the sweetheart that he is, didn't tap him out. Like he let go. I said, "Desmond, if he ever does it again, now you need to, when you got him in there, you need to say tap. If you want me to stop, tap out. Like really just assert your dominance for a second here." And I go, even if you didn't beat him up, even if you didn't do this, the fact that you stood up with him, I promise you, he's never going to mess with you again. I promise you. It's very rare that he's going to do that. because people just look for weak people. And when you show, even you don't even half the time, you don't have to do anything.
Did you
So
have to explain to him the next level of what was the consequence? Was he like, what's the
oh
consequence?
no, 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 no. I said, well, I did. I said, if he doesn't stop, then take whatever you can get right there. If you got a takedown, if you can take his
Okay.
back, he's been doing jujitsu for 3 years, so he's like he knows. So the next day, the kid was knocking on my door asking to play with my son,
Of
literally
course.
the next day.
Yeah.
And so, and it's different between if you don't stop, I'm gonna do this. That's a threat. I don't like threats. I think threats are weak to me. Like it's different when you're putting
Beautiful. No,
someone
I
on
hear
notice.
that.
Put them
Yep.
on notice. It's like it's not a threat. Um, Other than that, like with women, one of the I always tell the boys, number one, if you want someone like mommy, and trust me, you do, um, there's a certain certain amount of things that you're going to do. So, for example, like when it comes to your career, I will support anything you do. My Desmond is very artistic. I'll be happy if he wants to be a starving artist. I just tell him like in the reality of things. Like, look, if you're gonna do this, there's gonna be a certain type of person that's okay with that, and that's not doesn't mean that they're not a good person, or they're not what's the word, that they're less of a person, but it just a lot of women are not going to gravitate towards uncertainty and what's the other word of uncertainty? Yeah, just like lack of stability, instability.
Women
Cause
like safety. I mean, it's
yeah,
safety.
yeah,
And so money is a form of safety and comfort that
yeah,
is really, I mean, it's a very, very big thing. And that's a
yeah.
way, men used to hunt and stuff. So it's really interesting because I honestly, I have like 8, 9 chapters written. I have a long outline. Nowhere did I even think about relationship. Like,
Oh,
if you,
yeah,
you know what I mean? Like if you
yeah,
want a wife or a husband, I don't
yeah.
care. I mean, I didn't even think of this.
Oh, that's
This
good.
is
And whole
awesome.
new,
This
whole
is
new
all
dimension
good thing.
added.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
so you're talking
So
about make sure you're financially stable. You make sure you can be a strong, I mean, it's important. Nobody has to be, you know what I
but you
mean?
know what? It's not like because I mentioned it to Maura too. Like we always have our conversations at the end of the day in our bathroom. We close our room door, we close our bathroom door. That's when we talk and catch
Yeah.
up.
Yeah.
And she's like, it's not that you don't need to be there. I just need to know there's a plan. And I need to be really convinced that it's a real plan, that it's not just like, oh, you're gonna do this and you're gonna do like if I see you and you're just poor and you're working your butt off and you're doing something, I will stick with you. How many women have done that and and
Absolutely.
and not gotten that payoff because
Yeah.
it didn't ever, but it was the idea that he's got this taken care of. Like there's going to be mistakes in life, but like if Maura knows that if I'm on it, then she can rest again.
Yeah.
The other thing too, like obviously this is a simple one. If you see the girl that you're trying to hang out with, and she's just a dog to her dad, that to me is a very big red flag because like here's like I know I say a lot of things that get me in trouble, but I don't care. So it doesn't
Yeah,
matter.
let's do
So
it.
like, I don't care. I just like, with the biblical worldview, there's a lot of it that's like we got to parse through because there's a lot of stuff that like in the Old Testament and all that. But what the Bible says is you need to submit to your parents. You need to give them respect. You don't even have to love them. You need to respect them. And, you submit to your husband. And when I say submit, it's like the husband is submitting to the wife too, but the husband is in a leadership position, like a very defined leadership as far as like, all right, like if I want your input, wife, and I need your input and I'm never gonna, but if it came down to it and I had to make a quick decision and I don't agree with that, I'm gonna make my decision. It's kind of that type of thing. And so like a lot of guys too, they'll say, oh, they'll be with a girl and they're young and it's like, oh, she's not submitting to me. I'm like, you didn't put a ring on it. First of all, her job, her only responsibility is to her father right now. So that's kind of like something is a big red flag. It's just like, hey, is she always saying this about her dad, because it's, to me, that's a big red flag, you know?
Yeah, how they
So
project onto you or whatever. Like, and that's
yeah,
women.
same
We're
thing with
taught
men with their
look at,
moms.
see how
Yeah.
he talks about his mother
Yeah.
and all of that. Yeah.
So I'm trying to think of other relationship stuff, but I mean, you definitely touched on all the little rites of passage along the way. Hopefully, getting to a big one, you know, and then just the thought of being capable and just being like for example, and I hate this because I'm not doing jujitsu. I haven't done it since I got back into it in March, and then it wasn't working the way how busy I was, and I'm like, I just stopped. And I still have that in the back of my head because I did it for a year and then I stopped and then I ca- but like what really got me with that one was like a few years back, maybe 5 years ago, was when I really was like, I need to have some skill shooting a gun, you know, because I want to be prepared. And then I never thought I needed to do that with hand to hand combat. I thought, you know, but most of the time, people who look like me don't know how to fight. I just, you know, I don't know if you know that. A lot of the time, they lift weights and they don't know anything, unless they have an attitude, and then they kind of know street dirty fighting, you know.
Yeah.
But Jocko Willink said something that I was like, "Ugh, why you got to do that, Jocko? Why you got to tell me that?" And someone said, you know, why have you done jujitsu for all this time, especially, you know, you're a Navy SEAL. It was something like that where, you know, you can kill someone with knife, gun, all that. And he's like, honestly, I can't be walking around in the world not prepared for any situation. And then when he said that, I was like,
Yeah.
because being prepared is like, you know, just being that guy who's, and I that's another thing too. Like I agree with when you said, it really spoke to me because I tell this to my boys. You need to be strong and you need to be a leader for everyone around you. And I've always said to Desmond, you're a natural leader. I've always just said it because he is a natural leader. Like he does kids, like he'll be like, because he's humble and he's like, you know, we're going to play this and this, and this is what we're going to do. And he kind of just has a natural without being like over the top, like, let's do it my way. And I said, there comes a responsibility with that. Like, you know, whenever there's people around you, you know, you need to be the one who stand up for them, you know, and it's not just physically, it's just with everything else. It's like, no, that's, excuse me, sir, that's wrong. You know, that's,
Right.
you're being very rude, you know, like, I don't know this woman, but you're being very rude. Like just simple things like that. If a woman told me, oh my gosh, stop, like, I don't need your help, you know, I would be like, okay, ma'am, you know, I did it anyways, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's like just taking on that just importance of knowing like it's my job to protect others, because if more men did it, we wouldn't be in the situation where we are. Because you know
I
as well as
agree.
I know, with everything happening with the tyranny, it's all not real. It's all offers. Like they're offering you this, and if you don't do this, they're bluffing that they're going to do this, and it's never been real. But no one is taking it to the point where it's like, I can't do this anymore because I'm like, dang it, I don't work for someone anymore. I wish I could show them how to do this. You know, like they're not going to fire you, you know, like don't do this. If they fire you, you got a suit, you know? I said it the other day, I commented on someone because it was like, yes, it's inconvenient. Yes, it's going to take years to go through the whole thing. But at the same time, like, again, this is why we're here, because people just didn't speak up, you know? And then you know, they
Yeah.
don't know.
Being uncomfortable with discomfort, I think, is a thing that we've lost.
Yeah,
Right. And
that's
I
the
think
number one
men
thing
used
right
to
now that they're playing
know.
on. It's
Yeah.
like,
And
if
I
you
think,
don't do this, you're not going to get this
yeah.
service, or you're
Yeah.
not going to get this convenient. It's like, is that really where we are? That we're afraid to do something because it's gonna hurt our convenience. Like it's not even a threat to
Yeah.
my
But think
life. It's not
about this.
even like being tarred and feathered or something crazy.
Yeah. No, think about this though, Danny. Something with it happened. I forget where I was driving with somebody. I was some rural place, and it was a flat tire. I pull over and I'm like, I'm often first on scene of car accidents. I'm like, you need something? And it was this young guy, 30 some years old, didn't know how to change a flat tire. And I was like, oh man, pumpkin, here, hang on. Can I? And I had to do it.
Couldn't find his
Didn't,
jack. He couldn't find
they
anything.
don't even know what it is. Now, again, because the world has changed and people just are so accustomed to convenience. I'm going to do this for my son. I'm going to do exactly what my mother did to all of us, because this was inner city Detroit. You got your license. You can only take my car if I know you know how to check the oil. I can see you can change a flat tire, because there were no cell phones. I mean, if something breaks down, you got to fix it and get home, right? Yeah. So there were basic things about the car we had to understand. And if you couldn't do that, you can't get a license. You better show me how quickly you can get this done. And he's going to be the same way. I'm like, and again, it'll be easy because my son actually likes to do that stuff. But what's happened to me with all of society, and I think it's particularly hurt men, I think it's hurt manhood, is that a status symbol now has become how little physical labor you do, right? So men don't fix their cars. Nobody knows how to actually fix a car. Nobody fixes the change. Well, I got to change my brakes. I got to do the landscaping, mow the grass. I'm going to fix the roof. That's what everybody was doing in 1950, 1960. Yeah. They weren't hiring out everything. No. So now, they all knew how to change spark plugs. They all knew how to do, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, my brother still does all that stuff, right? So it's kind of like but now who does that?
See, I can't even, and I hate that because my dad and my grandfather owned a garage, so they're grease monkeys. Yeah. I never learned any of that. Right. And
that's what's happening. That's what's happening in each generation. Men and women, more. Right, are learning less and less, like whether it's how to actually cook a real meal instead of just heat something up in a microwave. How to actually do. And so I think for men, there's been this loss of like, well, y'all don't hunt for anything anymore. You don't get into nature and actually experience the symbiotic spiritual sacredness of what it means to take a life and to bring that home, and what that whole ritual. And
it was an experience when I killed my first animal. Like it was just this experience. It was I can't put it into words.
I haven't done it. I'm going to tell you, because I had great judgment. I'm this very intelligent, liberal, educated, became the vegan, thinking all of anybody out there with the hunters and Ted Nugent are lunatics, violent. You know what I mean? Yeah. And then I started seeing it from the primitive way and how it's sacred, and when I listened to hunters, and then I'm dating a hunter, and realized she's like, y'all people don't see, you think going for a hike in your Lululemons and your expensive REI boots is nature? No.
And they're in the city and they don't know half of what a hunter knows about even
anything. They become
what does it eat? What is it? Yeah.
Yeah. It's like I sit and become so still. My rhythm, I breathe with the tree to the point birds will land on me. That's awesome. I have to listen. And again, like most of the people I hang out with, they're not tree hunters. They're like, when I hunt deer, I'm tracking and I'm there. And if the universe, spirit, God, whatever you want to say, feels the need to put one before me that I get, then that's what I'm supposed to have. If I'm not gifted with that blessing, then I walk out of that forest after my 3-4 days.
And you're still way ahead of the game. Cause my last hunting trip was in December, and it was a weird thing where Robert always gets something, and Robert and I didn't even see anything the whole time. And Mike Mutzel got something, and Anthony J got something, and our friend Brandon got record days with the biggest pigs he's ever killed. And I didn't even see an animal this time around, but I was still out there. I'm like, it's like
that's what it's supposed to be. That's what they all say. Most of the people who hunt, they go, the majority of the time you don't actually get anything, but it's the experience, it's their way. That's actually nature. They go, you city folk think you're getting some nature by doing this little thing. And I'm like, I see the sacredness completely differently. Again, I've never done it. It's one of those things that I'm like, that's a moment where I even told my son, I go, it's going to be so hard for me, but I want to do, I don't like that I'm not competent in that way. And his desire to be competent and it's very much inspired me. I'm kind of so decked out for survival gear. He sat down with me and goes, here's the thing, Mom, I need to have a serious conversation with you right before COVID. And I said, okay, what? I've made all the plans. I will do everything. I just need you to make the financial investment in something. I went, okay, what are we talking? I was like, what is it? It's going to maybe cost $300. I went, oh, okay.
That's not bad.
So what is it? What is it? And it was, he goes, and I will do it. But I really hope you'll do this after I'm gone. I will help you when I move out and stuff. He was really, I was like, it was a very manly conversation. I was very proud of him when we were done. I was That's awesome. What? You really need to be prepared. for like a crisis, for the power to go out, but we need more food. You need water. I have to explain how to do it. There's a very certain way you have to, I mean, I was like, oh, I'm like, because he was very nervous with the COVID stuff and for his father and this, and, I was like, okay, slow down. He's like, but I've been wanting to do this. We don't have, I said, you know what, Bennett, you're right. I do need to know better how to start this boy can make fire like you've never seen. It's one of his
That's
skills.
a skill right
He can
there.
you should see his and then he'll test me. All right.
Does he uses a fire starter, right?
No.
Or so he's doing it with the sticks?
Stick.
Oh, wow. That's so hard, man.
He does it. He has many methods, but that knee is boom.
That is awesome.
Look at my, I should know all the terms. He'll test me. Is this first? No, he knows, like, he takes like survivalist courses. He's been always but here's the bad part, Danny, he's the only kid. He's always the only kid. Knife throwing, him, axe throwing, the kid. He's 10, 11, 12, 13, winter survivals, all these men with their, stuff. So he gets those experiences, right?
Yeah.
So my son's only a kid, but he's like, yeah, you could come. I mean, we have an adult, like me or his dad. I usually am like, Peter, can you take him? Because this is hard for me. Yeah. I'm like, I don't want to be out there with the bugs, right? But he inspired me to learn, right? So I'm like, to me, men, things like they need to be more in nature. They need to learn to hunt. They should have a knife. They should know what to do with a knife, a bow, a gun. I've changed so much from my very liberal ways of like, I'm really stunned. And I've learned through him to say, wait, what does it really mean to become a man? I don't actually know this. And let me look at what the men have gone through in the past. And you know what? Damn, how can you be strong if you don't have skills? How can you help anybody if you don't know how? Yeah. And again, learning that. And so nature, physical fighting, grappling, I agree. And with kids nowadays, I said, unfortunately, people will say, I'm like, I think a lot of their problem, not that I'm encouraging fighting. I don't really, people said, like, let me be real clear. Because it'd be something that happened and he got in trouble, told my mom. She's like, well, he handled it. I mean, she's like, well, he got in trouble for that. I said, yeah. She's like, well, you just would have punched him in the face. I said, yeah, but that would have solved the problem. Yeah. So here's the thing, that pop to the face, that ended the whole situation.
It's a quick check. It's
done. Check. That little boy, called me the N-word, right? Can't say it nowadays because and then he got popped in the face. He learned real quick he shouldn't say that word. I'm like, you gonna say it again? I said, I'm gonna pop you. I'm knock you out again, right? so they learn real quick. I said, now this stuff just goes on, and they keep having these weird things. And I said, so I am more of a fan of they should be able to fight. We played King of the Hill.
Oh, awesome.
Now, I mean, and the whole point of I told my Bennett, he goes, what? I said, I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe you can't play two-hand touch football. The
better you get, the harder it is.
Literally played. The whole point is to knock the living crap out of somebody and throw them down a hill or a wood chip pile. And now they're so not allowed to be physical like that they're so not getting
to make them hold in that he's either whoever the
what else are they going to do but punch a wall?
They're either going to break down or they're going to blow up, because they don't have healthy ways to express that that masculine energy. And like, we didn't talk about this, but it's good to have, there's certain things of the femininity that are good for me to have, and there's definitely several masculine things that's good for you to have, but they're still like, I don't know.
They harmonize each other. This is what I teach with my meditation, my spiritual and in sacred text. It's not domination. So the way you talked about submission, I could be like, if this was 10 years ago, I'd be triggered. Not anymore. I'm not at all. I'm like, I understand the masculine energy is there to harmonize the feminine energy. We're so holistic. We're so circular. We're so all over the place. If we didn't have that linear drive, action-oriented male arrow to come into the circle of the way we see 8,000 things, your wife is holding so much at the same time where you're like, what? It's just that. I didn't even think, right? Because you can't think of anything more than one thing.
Yeah.
We have to think of 150 things as we're able to watch what's going on and dealing with all the children.
Think about how good of a mom that makes you. Because then it's like that natural thing is why your kids didn't kill themselves. And if they were left with me, I'd be...
Our brains are set up that way. And again, it's very I think I'm a very strong feminist. I think I should be allowed to do what I do. I think I should all that kind of stuff. And I have no problem explaining. And my brain is designed differently than yours. right? We are different. Is a
Yeah.
male, there is a female. Hate to tell you, y'all can act like whatever you want to do. There's chromosomes, and they're telling
Yeah.
me everything I need to know. The biology is different. My brain is a little bit different. Doesn't mean yours is better. It doesn't mean mine is better. This
Not
is
at
what I'm
all.
good at. So that linear masculine energy harmonizes. It does not dominate. My feminine energy does not submit to it. It's a
Yeah.
harmonization. So now it makes sense. So of course I'm going to be more holistic and linear, but I can still get shit done because
Yeah.
I don't hate my masculine. I'm not working against it. I don't think it's toxic. I don't think it's violent. Right. And then, but though, if I was ashamed of my feminine energy, which I went through as a child, which I think feminine energy gets bastardized a lot. I think when you're real young, nothing's good to be a girl. Then there comes a point and you get older, not good to be a boy. Now men are toxic and men are
That's
violent,
true. That's so
and there
true.
are a lot of violent men. I mean, that's to tell the truth because
Yeah.
of what we've done and what we have allowed and to happen to them, to like not be allowed to really, I mean, I'm sure you've seen how many women are like castrating their own husbands. I'm like, you can't, you know what I mean? You're
Yeah,
angry.
and there's so much that that it's making the women miserable too. Like
Of
these lies
course.
that they're being told. It's like,
Yeah.
for example, like one of the ones we talked about is like, yes, it's good to follow your career, but there's always a balance, right? Because it's like, what happens if you don't find your mate, and then you're a little bit older, and now you also are starting to deal with that biological clock start to pick you. You start to get a little bit hasty with your decision making, and then all of a sudden you don't find the right guy because you kind of settle because you shortened your time frame. And
Yeah.
that goes even more back to the whole thing of like, I'm okay with the whole like getting married young, have 10 kids. Like I think there's something to that. To me, like it's the same thing as what you said about nature, where we're more connected. It's like we see what happened in the 50s and the 40s, and we see all the terrible things that happen where it's like, that it's not your place to speak. Like, whatever the,
Right.
the old sayings is, women don't speak there, that, they listen.
Yeah.
I get that. That's terrible. That's disrespectful. At the same time, we have different problems now because we've gone to the complete opposite, and
Yeah.
anything that mentions traditional roles, even the word traditional, you start to get this little thing in your head because you've been
Yeah.
so programmed to think like traditional, this is like oppressive. And it's like, it's traditional because these people that did it, the Native Americans, the people that existed, they did it that way before
Yeah.
these modern constructs that we have. And now we're thinking, no, this
And
is
they were
this is
truly egalitarian. That's the thing that
yeah, it
people
was a
don't understand.
group. It
And many
was,
of them were matriarchal, but it's a
yeah,
harmonization.
that too.
It's like a looking, and we've forgotten that. And I think I think we will eventually figure it out. One of my good friends, Dominic, said to me once, he's an executive coach and he's very manly. Like he runs men's groups and he helped teach me as well. Like I'm like, yeah. He's like, dude's got to be dude stuff. I mean, we got to go in the woods and like scratch our balls.
Yeah.
Stuff, you know what I mean? And I'm like, you know what? You're right. And he goes, yeah. He goes, like, it doesn't mean I don't love my wife, but I got to get away from her. And so this thing goes, I think the biggest mistake, two big mistakes that have happened is that women, like in general, women don't realize like they've forgotten they're smarter than men. He goes, there's no
I
doubt
know.
about it.
I used to
Yeah.
tell my sister that, dude, you got a lot of power. You should use it.
Yeah. He's like, women are hands down, no doubt about it, smarter than men. I think the only reason we're in some kind of dominant role is just sheer brute strength, and we did something and stole it in the past. Is like that. And two, that men can do what women can do. He's like, the idea that I would be home raising kids because I'm an idiot, I would destroy the whole thing. And
Yeah.
I don't think that
And
makes
doing
sense.
more than one task. We can't do more than one
Yeah,
task.
right. He's like, I'm the kid will end up drowning. I just should not be doing that, right? And,
Yeah.
so I was like, it's really interesting. He's like, and so there's that way, and he's like, I don't know the answer either, like how we, with the modern culture and jobs and it's tough, right? I own a
I think the
business, wife owns
intuition,
a
we just need
business.
to get back to our intuition.
Yeah,
We need to first fix the relationship because there's a lot of things that have destroyed our intuition, whether it's the fluoridated water and
yeah,
biologically, environmentally, but also the programming that you're taught from such a young age, where you're taught things that are so ridiculous that you're like, well, I don't understand that one bit, so I'm not even going to ever rely on myself, and I'm just going to trust them.
Yeah.
because my intuition is telling me that that's nonsense. My intuition is telling me that's ridiculous,
Yeah.
you know? But
I'm going to tell you, there's a shift that happens. These teenage years are really interesting. It'd be interesting to see what happens with your boys, because my son knew all kinds of things and intuition, and he was studying, physics. I'm super into Nassim Haramein. He's like my little physicist crush. I mean, I'm like, I love with him so much. I wish, I'm like, I would totally switch teams for Nassim. Okay. So I love him. My son, I'd show him things and we'd talk about things and I'd say this and that. And he studied Archimedes, did a presentation on him. He was,
cool.
So we'd look at the math and he's like, that's so cool. I'm like, I know. So we would talk about all these things. And I was kind of like, making sure I'm getting my information. I'm like, pretty much there's no mummies in the pyramids, honey. So I'm like, let's talk about what's really going on.
Yeah,
talking Graham Hancock to him. I'm like, okay, I'm like, don't put this on a test, but here's the truth. It's a lot of lies. But so he would tell me, he's like, this is so ridiculous what it says. I'm like, good, I'm glad you know it. Just learn it's a game right now, honey, and just whatever. But as he's getting older, he kind of wants to be a normie. You know what I mean? And I'm considered kind of radical right now. So I have to let that happen. And again, it's part of the normal development of, if we were in a tribal situation, he would be about to go out and kill the lion and come home and have his own house, right? With a potential wife. It would be pretty soon, right? It would be. Yeah. So I have to balance that with, well, he doesn't really have facial hair and he's not really like a full grown man yet. And you know what I mean? Like we're still in this moment of, you still need me. And I still have, the adolescent years are horrifying because this like ages 13 to 24 or 23, something like that. It might even go all the way to 25, but the adolescent brain is still there until you're like 24, 25. Their high injury accidents or death rate is 3 times more now than any other time in your life. So you're at this age where your brain is reckless. You don't have the same cognitive, control that your brain has. It's not fully, they take more risks, but there must be some biological design for that. There has to be. Like, why at 16, 17, 18, 19 are you designed to take more risks and have less like prefrontal cortex impulse control?
That's a good point.
These things, right?
Yeah.
So I have to try and keep remembering that and trusting, but like, oh my God, but they have more car accidents, more, just everything more. Because they don't have the same neurological development, same control, decision-making capabilities. We can pause more and go, wait a minute, that might not be a bright idea.
Yep.
They're like, let's put the bike on the roof and jump out and see what happens. You know what I mean?
Like, I remember those days. I don't do it anymore. I remember those days.
Right? I was the same way. So you want the balance of, I want you to live life to the fullest and I need you to keep you alive. Like, so I have to say it to him. I said, baby, it's hard for me. Like, because at the end of the day, you're always going to be my baby. You're turning into a man. And I'm supposed to be dying before you. Let's just be real clear on this. You will be burying me. That's the way it's supposed to work.
Yep.
And, oh Lord, you guys think now it's like, don't get in a car with someone ever drinking. Don't ever do. Mom, I would never. I know you would never, but I got to.
You got to still say it 5 more times.
It's okay. All the things. Yeah. Let me remind you. And if a girl ever tells, or one of your friends say, or boy, somebody is hurting them, you have to tell me. I don't care what you promise them. Like it's.
Yeah. Don't keep lies from your parents.
It's a very interesting thing to be at this age, right? Where I got to let them kind of be a normie. And like, when's he gonna? How can I get him to come back into like, what happened? I really have to trust. I'm like, I put it in there. You kind of lose them for a little bit.
That's crazy. I'm gonna have to get used to that because I'm a control freak. I'm supposed to be on a Zoom right now.
Yeah, it's all good. I gotta go to. Oh, okay, cool.
So but it's okay. I already texted the person.
Advice. Any last little thing you would say?
I mean, I guess
for
just
a young boy. To kind of
I would say be impeccable with your word, just like to yourself even. I mean, just like when you say something that you're going to do something, do it. And especially to yourself when you tell yourself something, because there's something terrible that happens to the brain when you quit even once, or when you don't follow through. Like it makes it so much easier to do it over and over and over. So like I would just say that would be my final one, is like make sure before you commit to be honor your word, like, and I've been working on that myself this year, because I'm like, I tell the truth, but I'm very like, I know how to massage things in a certain way. And I get it. The approach is right. But I want to just always, I want there never to be a doubt that I was authentic,
Yeah.
100%
I
authentic.
think the key was actually there because I believe in that integrity, explaining that. And we've always taught him about it, but it was more from to other people. But I
Yeah.
think the key, what you just said, Danny, was to yourself.
Yeah.
Then you lose self-respect. Then
Yeah.
that shame
And then you
arises.
expect less for yourself,
Yeah.
even if it's subconscious.
Yeah. Because you don't want to fail yourself again. So now I won't even ask anything of myself.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That's beautiful. That's going in the book.
I love it.
All right. Thank you, Danny.
It was so good talking to you.
It. You too.
Yes. Bye,
Okay,
Stephanie.
bye.